everybody, and good morning. This is Jay Smith from Jay Smith Music. Um, just coming to give you musicians some advice, especially you who primarily are gospel musicians and play for the church. A lot of gospel musicians call me, especially those who are younger than I, asking for advice, when they have problems. And it's not an easy ministry in the church. You have to deal with choir members who they don't know what you know. Half of them can barely sing, and but they want to tell you how to play, what you need to do, and they don't know the music ministry. And I hear this everywhere, you know, people who don't know a quarter of your job trying to tell you how to do it. And they're frustrated, and there's a big problem. Churches really have a high turnover rate for musicians, and musicians move churches a lot. And one of the reasons I can't say is the church problem, one problem that I want to talk about today is with the musician not being versatile enough. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. You know, one guy asked me a question, said, Jason, you know what, you seem pretty confident. And how did you get to the point to where you feel good about what you're doing music wise? And I said, a couple years ago, my biggest thing was to be able to say, you know what, I'm probably one of the most well-rounded musicians in this area. I play jazz, I play classical, I play R&B, blues, gospel, and and when I play these genres, I don't sound like a gospel musician playing them. If I play jazz chords, it's spaced correctly. My voicings are as a jazz musician. When I play gospel, I sound like I'm in church. So, and that comes from just years of experience and playing with other genres. So my biggest thing was to say, you know what? I can play anywhere, because for a long time I felt like it wasn't fair personally, because you got cats that all they do is work on church, 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 gospel music, and that's all they work on. All their chords, all their runs are straight gospel. Then you got this other class over here, all they work on is blues or R&B, classical, or etc. And I felt like I had this unfair issue because I'm trying to work in every genre and get great. And what happens is that was a slow process, because I felt like, what my peers are in each category may be excelling at a faster rate, but I'm accelerating, at a slower rate, because I'm trying to learn other genres that they're not learning. So about 5 or 6 years ago, all of that came full circle now to where I can say, you know what, I feel comfortable no matter what musical environment I go into. And that was my biggest thing, to say, you know what, I feel good now about my playing. But recently, I think God has been dealing with me on an issue. And now the biggest compliment you can give me is not my diversity in music, to say, well, you know what, he can play in church, he can play jazz, he can play R&B, he can play all these other styles. But the hardest thing for any musician to do is to play for the same people over and over and over and over again. Because what happens, it's just like a relationship. When you first get in a relationship, first 2 or 3 months, everybody's happy, they're in love. But go talk to that same couple 2 years from now. Now you've been able to see everything. Well, that's the case when a new musician comes to a church. You can know your little handful of chords and your little runs and tricks that you've learned, and you go to a church that first Sunday, oh my God, he's good. Second Sunday, wow, he's great. Come back to that church 6 months later. They've heard all your little chords, all your runs, and all your little tricks, and now people in church sitting like this, because there's no diversity to your sound. And any musician can go into a church and you can just thrive and feed off the newness of you being there. But after being at the same church for 4 or 5 years, and when people come to you, oh my God, Minister Smith, the music department was just, y'all were just hitting it this morning. It was great. And when they have to hear we offer Christ to you 45 times in a 4 month period, and every time it's different, because one Sunday I come to church, I'm putting a lot of classical in. Next Sunday I come, I'm jazzed out. The next Sunday I come, I'm gospel. My church will never outgrow my sound because of my diversity. And what happens with a lot of gospel musicians, because they fail to learn other genres of music to insert in their playing, the church essentially will outgrow your sound. And what happens, because they don't know how to communicate that to you musically, it comes out in attitudes and strife. Well, can we do something different? Can we sing this differently? Everything sounds the same. You get frustrated with them, and next thing you know, you've left the church. And the reason being, it's hard Sunday after Sunday after Sunday to produce and give out some fresh manna that will minister to the same people who have to hear you Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. The easiest thing to do is to jump around, because people don't know you. And those little tricks and runs that you've accumulated will last for a few months. But it takes a little time for a congregation to really see what you don't know. You can be at a church 6 months. Some soloist comes on some program in the afternoon that you didn't know about. You can't follow her. They're like, oh, he couldn't follow her, but we thought he was good. That's what people do. Because I'm going to be honest with you, musicians, stop judging your playing off of the congregation. They know nothing about music. Most of them don't. Now, it depends on where you are. You go to some larger cities and you got people in the congregation who know. But 9 times out of 10, most people in church know nothing about music. Because I can show you where a church can just go crazy over a guy who does a run. But when you pull him to a side, most musicians know this man only knows 3 or 4 chords and can only play in 2 keys. It doesn't take much to wow church folks. They don't know that much about music, okay? So what I'm saying is, musicians, your peers is the word that you need to take more than anything else. I respect other musicians' opinions more than I would the congregation, because they don't know music. They don't play it the way we have to. And so what I do, musicians, is I just want to continually encourage you to get out of your comfort zone. You know, if it wasn't funk from the 70s, we wouldn't have Never Shall Forget from John P. Key, or, a lot of stuff from Byron Cage. If it wasn't for classical, we wouldn't have Order My Steps or Total Praise. All of these genres are inserted into gospel. So for you not to learn them, you're hurting yourself. And to sit here and use church and God, oh, I'm a church musician, I don't have to get in all that, I just play for the Lord. Well, that's foolish, because the Bible says, study to show yourself approved. Go get a book. You don't have to be the best, but learn how to at least read the notes off a staff. You don't even have to sight read that well. But if you can buy music and learn how to read the notes, take your time, learn what the true chords are. Don't learn this bootleg number system. Learn the true numbers of a diatonic scale, because the 6 and the 3 isn't always going to be minor. Learn a true name of a chord. Learn that it's a 13 sharp 11 and it comes from the melodic minor scale, so that you'll know how not only to play it, but how to solo over that chord. So learn things the right way, take your time, and don't try to do what other musicians do, because you'll just end up doing what everyone else does. And, I tell a lot of people, the reason a lot of church musicians don't learn theory is because most church musicians evolve through songs, meaning, can you play the new Karen Clark? Can you play that new Ty Tribbett? Or can you play the new John P. Key song that's out? That's how they evolve, through songs. But they don't evolve a lot of times through progressions. The same progression can be in the same songs. But instead of learning it as a 2-5-1 progression with a 13th chord here, people learn stuff according to songs. That's good for your ear, but it's horrible for theory. So I just encourage you, learn your craft and be more diverse. It's a challenge. I always stay on YouTube listening to guys who know more than me and can play better than I can. And I have to always be chasing something. I'm my own worst critic. I'm going to get tired of me playing a run before you will. I'm going to get tired of me playing the same progression before you will. And that's the worst place to be, is to be a singer or a musician and think you can sing and you can't. Think you can play and you don't know that much. That's the worst thing. I learn every day. I learn from people on YouTube. Every time I go somewhere, it can be a person that doesn't know half of what I know, but they may take a run in a different direction. I'll be like, oh, I've never done that. Let me try this and let me add this with that. So learn from each other. we have to work together. You know, even here in Rome, I'm in Rome, Georgia, about an hour north of Atlanta. When you go up north, musicians, that's their culture. They want to play, they want to show what they know, they share it. You got people around here that can't play but in one or two keys and transposing the deaf and don't know that much and still have an attitude and won't work with each other. This is the craziest place I've ever seen in my life. So we have to come together and work together. You know, it's not a competition. I personally, and don't take this the wrong way, I have freed myself from this little church clique musicians. I call it a church chitlin circuit. I'm not even on it anymore. So you can sit around here and argue with each other, fight and argue amongst who you think the best is. It's not about that. It's about giving God glory, and it's about personal growth in your own music ministry. So that's why many of them don't see me anymore. I don't get into that, you know. Just like the whole thing, you know, churches have the choir anniversaries. You got 5 or 6, 10, 12, 13 choirs coming together. Some days it can be a praise to God, and sometimes it can turn into an all-out show, which is the church chitlin circuit. Get off of it. But anyway, God gets the glory. Elevate your gift by studying. Study to show yourself approved. Don't be like everybody else. Be you. God bless you.